The bullet missed Kira Stone's head by 3 inches. She didn't flinch. She moved. Her body dropped low as the second shot punched through the mahogany wall, where her skull had been a heartbeat before. Glass from the executive chandelier exploded across the marble floor of the penthouse suite. The lights died. Emergency red flooded the hallways of the Iron Dragon Syndicate headquarters, painting everything the color of fresh blood. Kira's hand found her Glock before her knee hit the ground. She fired twice into the darkness, controlled, precise. A body dropped somewhere beyond the shattered doorway. She counted footsteps. 8. No, 9. Coming from 3 directions. Behind her, Park Jun-ho, the most feared Mafia boss in Seoul, pressed himself against the reinforced panic room door, his expensive suit torn, his face pale with something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Fear. Get inside, Kira said, her voice calm as winter morning. She didn't look at him. Her dark eyes tracked movement through the smoke and chaos, calculating angles, counting shadows. They're everywhere, Jun-ho whispered. His English was good, but panic made it crack. How many? 53 when I started counting. Kira ejected her magazine, checked it by touch, slammed it back home. 47 now. Get inside. The panic room door hissed open. Jun-ho hesitated, watching this black woman. This outsider everyone had mocked 72 hours ago. Reload with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this in worse situations. You can't. Before the story continues, kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the conclusion of this story and more intense stories like this. I can. She glanced back once. Her face was bleeding from a cut above her eyebrow. Her tactical vest was torn, but her eyes were absolutely steady. And I will. That's what you paid for. She shoved him inside and sealed the door. Then she turned to face the hallway where 9 assassins were converging, and she smiled the way wolves smile before they hunt. They had sent 53 killers to murder 1 Korean crime lord. Every single one of them had made the same mistake. They underestimated her. 72 hours earlier, the rain in Seoul felt like it had a grudge against the city. Kira Stone stepped off the private jet at Incheon International Airport with nothing but a tactical duffel bag and a reputation that preceded her like a ghost. She was tall, 5'9", with dark skin that caught stares in a country where she looked like nobody else. Her hair was pulled back tight, her clothes functional, her expression unreadable. The customs officer looked at her American passport, then at her face, then back at the passport like he was checking if someone had photoshopped reality. Business or pleasure? He asked in English. Work, Kira said. He stamped her passport without another word. Something in her eyes told him not to ask what kind. Outside, Seoul hit her like a sensory overload. Neon signs in Hangul she couldn't read, the smell of street food mixing with exhaust fumes, millions of people moving with collective precision through a city that never stopped humming. She had worked in 13 countries across 4 continents, but Asia was always different. The hierarchies ran deeper here. The unspoken rules carried more weight than laws. And she was about to walk straight into the heart of Korean organized crime. A black Mercedes SUV pulled up. The door opened. A young Korean man in an expensive suit gestured for her to get in. His face showed exactly what he thought of her. A foreign woman, a black woman, in a world that had no space for either. You are the American, he said. Not a question, an accusation. I'm the bodyguard, Kira corrected. She threw her bag in and climbed in after it. The man's name was Min Jun. He was one of Park Jun-ho's lieutenants, and he spent the entire 40-minute drive into Seoul explaining, in condescending English, why hiring her was a mistake. You don't understand our world, Min Jun said, weaving through traffic like every car was personally offending him. Korean underworld has rules. Traditions. You are black, Kira offered, watching the city slide past. I was going to say inexperienced with our culture, Min Jun said, but his tone confirmed what she already knew. And you are a woman. The syndicates will not respect this. Good, Kira said quietly. Min Jun glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Good. People who don't respect you make mistakes. She met his eyes in the mirror. Mistakes get them killed. Min Jun's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He didn't respond. The Iron Dragon Syndicate operated out of a high-rise in Gangnam. Luxury on the outside, fortress on the inside. The lobby looked like a 5-star hotel. The security looked like military contractors trying to blend in. They didn't succeed. Kira counted 12 armed men before she reached the elevator. All of them watched her like she was a stain on their pristine marble floors. The elevator climbed in silence. Minjun's jaw was tight. When the doors opened on the 40th floor, he led her down a hallway lined with expensive art that was probably stolen and bodyguards who definitely were killers. They stopped at a set of double doors. "Boss is inside," Minjun said. "Be respectful. Bow when you greet him. Do not make direct eye contact unless he." Kira walked past him and opened the door. The office beyond was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's nighttime sprawl, darkwood furniture that cost more than most cars, and sitting behind a desk carved from single piece of timber was Park Jun-ho. He was younger than she expected. Mid-40s, maybe. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. His face carried the kind of stillness that came from having ordered deaths and watched men die. But there was something else too, fatigue, maybe, or fear wearing a mask of control. He looked up as she entered. Behind her, Minjun was hissing something in Korean, probably apologizing for her rudeness. Kira walked straight to the desk and met Junho's eyes. "I'm Kira Stone," she said. "You hired me to keep you alive. So let's talk about who wants you dead and why your current security is going to fail." For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Park Jun-ho started laughing. It wasn't warm. It was the laugh of a man who had forgotten what genuine amusement felt like and was surprised to feel it again. "Minjun," he said in English, still watching Kira. "Leave us." "But boss." "Out." The door closed. Jun-ho stood slowly, walked around his desk, and stopped 3 feet from Kira. He was evaluating her the way people evaluate weapons, checking for flaws, testing for weakness. "You know why I hired you?" he asked. "Because everyone else you hired is dead or bought," Kira said. His expression flickered. "You did your research." "I always do." She didn't move, didn't blink. 3 assassination attempts in 4 months. Each one came closer. Your security has leaks. Your allies have agendas. And you're running out of people you can trust. Junho studied her for a long moment. Outside, Seoul glittered like broken glass scattered across black velvet. The city was beautiful and brutal, just like everything else in his world. "You're right," he finally said. "But you missed something." "What?" "I hired you because nobody expects you." He returned to his desk, poured 2 glasses of whiskey from a crystal decanter. He offered her one. She didn't take it. He smiled slightly. "Good. Never drink on duty. I'm testing you already." He drank both glasses himself. "The Jade Serpent clan wants me dead," Jun-ho continued, settling back into his chair. "The Red Phoenix Triad wants me dead. The Yakuza wants me dead. And someone inside my own organization, someone close, is feeding them information." He leaned forward. "Everyone expects me to hire another Korean. Another man. Someone traditional who will follow the old codes and die like everyone else died." "So you hired me to throw them off," Kira said. "I hired you because your record says you've never lost a client." Junho's eyes were hard now. 12 protection contracts. War zones, cartel territory, political assassinations. 12 contracts. 12 survivors. That's not luck. That's skill. That's preparation, Kira corrected. "And it only works if you listen to me." "I'm listening now." Kira finally moved. She walked to the windows, looked down at the street 40 floors below, then back at the office layout. "This room is a death trap. Those windows are reinforced, but not bulletproof. You have one exit. The elevator is controlled externally. Anyone who wants you dead just needs to cut the power and send a team up the stairs. We have 30 security personnel in this building," Junho said. "You have 30 people who will die in the first 3 minutes." Kira turned to face him. "How many of them have actually fought? Not posturing, not enforcement. Real combat." Junho's silence was answer enough. "Here's how this works," Kira said. "I control your movements. I control access to you. I sleep in the room next to yours. I eat before you eat. I check every car, every route, every meeting space. And anyone who objects to any of that gets removed from your security detail immediately. My men won't accept orders from a black woman." Kira's voice didn't rise. "I know. That's their problem. When the bullets start flying, respect doesn't matter. Competence does." Junho's jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he might refuse. Thought his pride might get him killed like it had gotten so many other powerful men killed. Then he nodded once. You have 72 hours to prepare, he said quietly. After that, I have a meeting I cannot miss. Neutral ground. Multiple syndicates. If someone is going to move against me, it will be then. Then we have work to do, Kira said. She left the office without bowing, without ceremony, without asking permission. Behind her, she heard Jun-ho's quiet laugh again. That sound of a man recognizing his own death warrant and hiring the only person crazy enough to tear it up. The next 2 days were a war before the war. Kira moved through the Iron Dragon headquarters like an invading army doing reconnaissance. She mapped every floor, every stairwell, every blind spot. She checked weapon stores, found them adequate but poorly maintained. She reviewed security protocols, found them theatrical and useless. And she dealt with the men who hated her presence. It started small. Accidental shoulder checks in hallways. Documents left untranslated. Instructions given in rapid Korean she wasn't supposed to understand. She let it slide. She was patient. She knew how to pick her battles. Then it escalated. On the second day, she found her tactical gear tampered with. Someone had removed firing pins from 2 of her backup weapons. It was subtle, the kind of sabotage that would only matter in a firefight, when seconds meant the difference between living and dying. Kira held the disabled weapon in her hand and walked straight into the security team's break room. 8 men looked up. Min-jun was there, along with several enforcers whose names she hadn't bothered learning. The room went quiet. Whoever touched my equipment, Kira said calmly. You have 10 seconds to admit it. Nobody spoke. A few of them smiled. Okay, Kira said. She walked to the nearest man, a thick-necked enforcer who went by the name Dae-sung. He was big, maybe 6'2", with arms like tree trunks and a reputation for violence. It wasn't, he started. Kira drove her palm into his solar plexus. The air left his lungs in a rush. Before he could recover, she had his arm twisted behind his back and his face pressed against the wall. It took 3 seconds. I don't care who it was, she said, her voice still calm, still level. But understand this. You sabotage my equipment, you sabotage your boss's survival. Next person who tries it, I break bones. Are we clear? She released him. Dae-sung slid down the wall, gasping. The room was frozen. Min-jun's face had gone pale. Kira turned to leave, then paused at the door. I'm not here to be your friend, she said. I'm here to keep Jun-ho alive. You can hate me all you want. Just stay out of my way. She left them there, silent and staring. That evening, Jun-ho summoned her to his private quarters, a penthouse suite at the top of the building. When she arrived, he was standing by the window with a drink in his hand. I heard about Dae-sung, he said without turning around. He recovered, Kira replied. You made your point. Jun-ho looked at her reflection in the glass. But you also made enemies. I already had enemies. Now they know the cost. Jun-ho smiled faintly. You don't talk like a bodyguard. What do I talk like? A soldier. He turned to face her. Where did you serve? Classified. Not with the U.S. military. No, Kira said. Darker than that. She didn't elaborate. Some doors stayed closed. Some histories stayed buried. Jun-ho seemed to understand that. He didn't press. Tell me about tomorrow, he said instead. The meeting is at a restaurant in Itaewon, Kira began. She pulled up a tablet, showing him satellite images she'd acquired. Neutral territory. For entrances. Rooftop access. The Jade Serpent and Red Phoenix representatives will both be there, along with intermediaries from 3 other syndicates. It's a peace negotiation, Jun-ho said. It's an ambush waiting to happen. Kira zoomed in on the building layout. Too many exits means too many attack vectors. You'll be exposed from the moment you enter until the moment you leave. I have to go, Jun-ho said quietly. If I don't, I look weak. Weakness is death in this world. Then we control what we can. Kira marked positions on the map. I'll have an advance team sweep the building 2 hours before. You arrive last, leave first. I stay within arm's reach the entire time. And we have a backup extraction vehicle on 3 different routes. Jun-ho nodded slowly. You've done this before. More times than I can count. Did anyone ever die? Kira met his eyes. Not my clients. The weight of that statement hung in the air. Jun-ho understood what she wasn't saying, that other people had died, that she had killed to protect the people she was paid to protect, that when it came down to it, she chose her client's life over every other life in the room. I believe you, Jun-ho said finally. The night before the meeting, Kira didn't sleep. She sat in the surveillance room, cycling through security feeds, checking and rechecking routes, running simulations in her mind. Every instinct she had developed over 15 years of keeping people alive in hostile territory was screaming that something was wrong. The problem was, she couldn't pinpoint what. At 3 in the morning, Jun-ho found her there. He entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He set one down beside her without speaking. "You should rest," he said. "I'll rest when you're safe." Jun-ho pulled up a chair, studying the monitors with her. The building was quiet, just night shift security doing rounds, the low hum of expensive electronics, the distant sound of Seoul traffic 40 floors below. "Can I ask you something?" Jun-ho said. Kira glanced at him. "Depends what it is." "Why do you do this work?" He gestured at the screens. "You could be doing anything. Private military, corporate security, government contracts. Why protect men like me? Men like you. Criminals." Jun-ho's voice was flat. "I'm not delusional about what I am. I've ordered murders. I've profited from suffering. I'm not a good man seeking redemption." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I don't protect you because you're good. I protect you because that's the contract. In my world, your word is everything. You hired me. I accepted. That means I'll walk through hell to keep you breathing. That's all. Professional integrity. That's everything," Kira said. "The moment you start making moral judgments about clients, you start making decisions that get people killed. I don't judge. I execute." Jun-ho studied her profile in the monitor light. "You're an interesting woman, Kira Stone." "I'm a dangerous woman," she corrected. "There's a difference." "I'm beginning to understand that." They sat in silence for a while, watching the city sleep. Finally, Jun-ho stood. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be long." "Tomorrow will be war," Kira replied. "I can feel it." Jun-ho paused at the door. "If you're right, if they come for me tomorrow, what are my chances?" Kira turned to look at him fully. Her dark eyes were absolutely clear. "If you stay close and do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you." She didn't smile. "Better than theirs." The restaurant was called Moon's Shadow, and it was the kind of place where politicians and criminals ate at neighboring tables and pretended not to recognize each other. Kira arrived 2 hours early with a 3-person advance team she'd personally vetted. They swept every floor, every kitchen, every back hallway. She checked sight lines from surrounding buildings. She confirmed backup vehicles on 3 separate routes. She did everything right. And still, her instincts screamed. "Something's wrong," she told Min-jun over comms. He was coordinating from a mobile command center 3 blocks away. "All clear from our end," Min-jun replied. His tone suggested he thought she was being paranoid. "I don't care what your screens say. I'm telling you, something is off." "Boss arrives in 20 minutes, Min-jun said, dismissing her concern. "Stick to the plan." Kira switched channels. "All positions sound off." Her advance team reported in. Everything was clear. The restaurant staff were the regular employees. She'd verified their identities personally. The other syndicate representatives were arriving on schedule, their security details following protocol. Everything was perfect. That was the problem. In her experience, nothing was ever perfect. Perfect meant someone had worked very hard to make it look that way. Jun-ho's convoy arrived exactly on time. 3 vehicles, a lead car, Jun-ho's armored Mercedes, and a chase vehicle. Kira was in the Mercedes with him, her hand resting on her concealed weapon, her eyes tracking every movement outside. "You're tense," Jun-ho observed. "I'm ready," Kira corrected. They entered through the main entrance. The restaurant had been partially cleared. Only the syndicate representatives and their immediate security were present. Kira counted heads. 12 total. 4 from Jade Serpent, 3 from Red Phoenix, 2 independents, and Jun-ho's party. The meeting was held in a private room on the 2nd floor. Traditional Korean architecture, low tables, cushioned seating, paper screens that were decorative and useless for cover. Kira hated everything about it. She positioned herself behind Jun-ho, her back to the wall, her eyes constantly moving. The other bodyguards mirrored her stance. Everyone was armed. Everyone was watching everyone else. The discussion began in Korean. Kira's Korean was functional but not fluent. She caught maybe half of what was being said. Something about territory disputes, revenue sharing, boundaries being disrespected. Then the Jade Serpent representative, a thin man with silver hair called Director Kim, switched to English, probably for her benefit. "We hear you've hired new security," Kim said, his eyes flicking to Kira. "Very exotic choice." Jun-ho's expression didn't change. I hire based on competence, not appearance. Of course. Kim smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Though one wonders if competence can overcome cultural differences. The old ways matter, Park. They keep us strong. The old ways got 3 of my predecessors killed, Jun-ho replied coolly. I prefer results over tradition. The tension in the room ratcheted up a notch. Kira's hand moved fractionally closer to her weapon. Something was happening here. A game within the game. A challenge being issued in careful language. Then the Red Phoenix representative spoke. Her name was Madame Choi, and she was the most dangerous person in the room aside from Kira. She wore expensive silk and carried herself like a blade wrapped in elegance. Perhaps we should test this competence, Madame Choi suggested, to put everyone's mind at ease. Test. Jun-ho's voice was carefully neutral. Nothing dramatic. Madame Choi gestured elegantly. Just a simple demonstration. Your bodyguard against one of ours. Hand to hand. First to yield. It would settle certain questions about whether you've made a wise investment. The room went quiet. Kira knew exactly what this was. A trap. A humiliation. They wanted to prove she was inadequate, to embarrass Jun-ho in front of his peers, to show that hiring her was a mistake born of desperation. Jun-ho looked at her. His eyes asked a silent question. Kira gave the slightest nod. Fine, Jun-ho said. Who do you offer? Madame Choi smiled. Tae-won, come forward. A man stood from behind her. He was enormous, 6'4", maybe 270, built like a mountain. His knuckles were scarred. His face was a map of old violence. He'd been a fighter in his previous life, probably underground rings where men fought until bones broke. He looked at Kira and smiled. I try not to hit women, he said in heavily accented English. But I make exception. Kira stepped away from the wall. She removed her jacket slowly, revealing the tactical vest underneath, the compact strength of her frame. She was giving away nearly 80 pounds and half a foot in height. Every person in that room thought they knew how this would end. They were all wrong. Rules? Kira asked. First blood or submission, Madame Choi said. No weapons. No rules about what I can break. Kira's voice was almost pleasant. Tae-won laughed. It was a deep, rumbling sound. You can try, little bird. They moved to an open space. The bodyguards and representatives formed a loose circle. Jun-ho's face was unreadable, but Kira could feel his tension. Tae-won took a traditional fighting stance, strong, grounded, powerful. He was a brawler who relied on strength and intimidation. Kira stood loose, balanced, her hands open. Begin, Madame Choi said. Tae-won came forward like a freight train. Kira moved like water. His first punch could have taken her head off. She wasn't there. She slipped inside his guard, drove her elbow into his floating rib, hard, precise, and was gone before he could counter. Tae-won grunted, turned, swung again. Kira ducked, stepped, delivered 3 rapid strikes to his kidney, his solar plexus, his inner thigh. Every strike was surgical. Every movement was economy itself. Tae-won was strong, but strength meant nothing if you couldn't land a hit. He swung again, putting his full weight behind a haymaker that would have shattered bone. Kira dropped low, swept his planted leg, and as his balance broke, she rose up with a knee to his descending face. The impact was brutal. Blood sprayed from his nose. The room was silent except for Tae-won's ragged breathing. He touched his face, saw blood, and something changed in his eyes. The smile was gone. Now it was anger, pride wounded, ego shattered. He rushed her with a roar. Bad decision. Kira sidestepped, caught his arm, used his own momentum to redirect him straight into the wall. He hit hard enough to crack the decorative plaster. Before he could recover, she had his arm locked behind him in a position that put his shoulder joint 1 inch from dislocation. Yield, she said quietly. Tae-won struggled. She applied pressure. He gasped. Yield, she repeated. No emotion. Just fact. I yield, he choked out. Kira released him and stepped back. Tae-won collapsed to his knees, cradling his arm, blood streaming from his nose. She hadn't even broken a sweat. She turned to face the room. Every eye was on her now, no longer dismissive, no longer amused. Now there was something else. Calculation. Fear. Respect earned in blood. Any other questions about competence? Jun-ho asked into the silence. His voice carried quiet satisfaction. No one answered. Madame Choi's expression was carved from ice. Director Kim looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. The other representatives were reassessing everything they thought they knew. Kira put her jacket back on, returned to her position behind Jun-ho, and went back to scanning for threats as if nothing had happened. The meeting continued, but the dynamic had shifted. Jun-ho spoke with more authority now. The others were more careful, more respectful. They had seen what his exotic choice could do, and it had recalibrated their understanding of power. But Kira barely listened to the negotiations, because her instincts were still screaming. The meeting lasted another 40 minutes. Agreements were reached, territories were confirmed, and everyone pretended they were civilized people making civilized deals. But Kira knew better. These were predators in expensive clothes, and the moment weakness showed, they would attack. When it finally ended, Jun-ho stood, made his formal goodbyes, and headed for the exit. Kira moved with him, her body positioned to shield his from any angle of attack. They walked down the stairs, through the main dining area, toward the front entrance where their convoy waited. Everything was still perfect. Too perfect. Kira's hand moved to her weapon as they reached the door. Outside, she could see their vehicles. The drivers were in position. The street looked clear. "Wait," she said quietly. Jun-ho stopped. "What is it?" "Something's wrong." Kira activated her comm. "Min-jun, status check on all vehicles." "All clear," Min-jun's voice crackled back. "Drivers report ready." "Check them again. Verify driver identities visually." There was a pause. Then Min-jun's voice came back, irritated. "We've been monitoring the entire time. Nothing." The lead car exploded. The blast shattered every window in the restaurant. Fire and shrapnel tore through the street. Kira threw herself over Jun-ho, driving him back into the building as a wave of heat and pressure slammed past them. Screams. Alarms. Chaos. Kira's ears were ringing, but her training was automatic. She hauled Jun-ho to his feet, dragged him away from the entrance, her weapon already drawn. Back exit. Now, behind them, the other syndicate representatives were scrambling, their bodyguards drawing weapons, everyone shouting in Korean. Through the smoke and fire, Kira could see movement in the street, figures emerging, armed, professional. This way, she pushed Jun-ho toward the kitchen. Min-jun was screaming something over comms, but she couldn't make it out through the static and ringing in her skull. They burst through the kitchen doors. Staff were panicking, running. Kira shoved them aside, dragging Jun-ho toward the back service entrance. They needed to get out, get distance, get to a secure location. She hit the service exit door. It was locked from the outside. Down. Kira yanked Jun-ho behind a stainless steel prep counter as bullets punched through the door from the other side. The ambush was coordinated, front and back simultaneously. They were trapped. How many? Jun-ho gasped. His face was cut from flying glass, blood running down his cheek, but his eyes were sharp. Too many. Kira was already calculating. They couldn't go forward or back. Up was the only option. The roof. We go up. She keyed her comm, switching through channels, trying to find someone, anyone. All units, this is Stone. Building is compromised. Primary is mobile. Requesting immediate extraction, rooftop of Moon's Shadow Restaurant. Repeat, rooftop extraction. Nothing but static. Either the comms were jammed, or everyone was dead. Move. Kira hauled Jun-ho up and toward the service stairs. Behind them, she could hear the back door being kicked in, boots on tile, tactical movements. They ran. Up 1 floor. 2 floors. 3. Jun-ho was gasping. He wasn't built for this, wasn't trained for combat sprints while death chased him. But he kept moving because the alternative was dying. 4th floor. 5th. Kira could hear pursuit below, multiple teams, organized, closing in from multiple directions. She fired twice down the stairwell without looking, just to slow them down, to make them cautious. How many did you count? Jun-ho managed between breaths. In the initial assault, Kira kicked open a door to the 6th floor, checked the hallway, clear, and dragged him forward. 20, maybe more. 20 assassins, Jun-ho said, and he started laughing. It was the laughter of a man who understood he was about to die and couldn't believe the absurdity of it. They sent 20 men to kill one person. They sent 20 men to kill you. Kira corrected, finding another stairwell, pushing upward. They didn't account for me. You're one woman against 20 trained killers. Kira stopped, turned, looked him dead in the eye. I know, she said, and there was something in her expression that made Jun-ho's laughter die in his throat. That's their mistake. They reached the roof access door. Kira fired 3 rounds into the lock mechanism and kicked it open. Night air and rain hit them. When had it started raining? And suddenly they were on the roof of a 6-story building in the middle of Seoul with nowhere left to run. Kira scanned the surroundings. Other buildings, some taller, some shorter. Rain making everything slick. The distant sound of sirens. Police responding to the explosion. Too far away to help. Too slow to matter. Call someone, Jun-ho said, pulling out his phone with shaking hands. Call anyone. They jammed communications, Kira said. She was checking her ammunition. 2 magazines left. 40 rounds. Against at least 20 opponents. The math was bad. Your phone won't work. Then what do we do? Kira looked at him. This crime lord who ordered deaths like ordering dinner, who controlled territory through fear and money, who was completely and utterly helpless without her. We survive, she said simply. The roof access door exploded inward. The first assassin through the door caught 2 rounds center mass before he'd fully cleared the threshold. He dropped. The second one was smarter. Came through low and fast, but Kira had already moved, using a ventilation unit for cover, firing at angles they couldn't anticipate. Another body dropped. Behind the air conditioning unit. Kira shoved Jun-ho toward the largest structure on the roof. Stay down and don't move. Kira, don't move. 3 more assassins breached the roof. Professional. Trained. They came through the door using suppressing fire, establishing cover positions immediately. Kira smiled. They had training. They had numbers. They had the advantage. But she had something they didn't. She had nothing left to lose. Kira moved like a ghost in the rain. She used the darkness, the weather, the terrain. Every ventilation shaft, every shadow, every angle became a weapon. The assassins had training, but training made you predictable. They moved in patterns, clearing sectors, establishing fields of fire, communicating with hand signals. Kira broke every pattern. She appeared where they didn't expect, fired from positions they'd already cleared, used their own tactics against them. One assassin turned a corner, and she was there, knife to his throat before he could scream. Another caught her reflection in a metal surface too late. 2 rounds through the back of his skull. The rain washed away the blood almost as fast as she spilled it. Contact. North side, someone shouted in Korean. Kira was already gone, circling, hunting. She could hear Jun-ho's ragged breathing from his hiding spot. He was terrified but following instructions, staying down, staying quiet. Good. Fear kept you alive when you knew your limitations. More assassins flooded onto the roof. Kira counted 7 now. Her ammunition was running low, maybe 15 rounds left. She needed to be smarter, more efficient. She targeted the one giving orders, a man in tactical gear with a comm unit, coordinating the others. She tracked him through the rain, waiting for her moment. He moved behind a ventilation unit, thinking he was covered. Kira came over the top of it like a demon. She landed on him hard, drove her knife into his throat before he could react, caught his falling weapon, a submachine gun, full magazine, and rolled away as his squad mates opened fire at where she'd been. Now the odds were better. She came up firing. 3-round bursts. Controlled. Precise. One assassin went down. Another took cover, trying to flank. She shot him through the knee, then the chest as he fell. She's one person, someone screamed in Korean. How is she doing this? Because you expected an easy target, Kira thought. Because you underestimated what desperation and skill could do when combined. Because you forgot that sometimes one person with nothing to lose is more dangerous than an army. Thunder cracked overhead. Or maybe it was more gunfire. Hard to tell anymore. Kira ejected her spent magazine, slammed in her last one. 8 rounds in the pistol. Half a magazine in the submachine gun. Maybe 30 seconds before they overwhelmed her position through pure numbers. Time to change the game. Jun-ho, she shouted. When I say run, you run for the northeast corner. There's a fire escape. They'll see me. They'll be busy. Kira rose from cover, fired the submachine gun in a wide arc, suppressing, forcing heads down. Run. Now. Jun-ho ran. Immediately, 3 assassins broke from cover to pursue him. Kira tracked them with cold precision. First one dropped, shot through the spine. The second one made it 3 steps, headshot. The third one was smart, serpentined, made himself a difficult target. Kira led him by half a second and fired. He fell. But her submachine gun clicked empty. Pistol only now. 8 rounds. And she could hear more footsteps on the stairs. Reinforcements. How many assassins had they sent? 20? 30? The number kept growing. Jun-ho reached the fire escape, started climbing down. Good. If she could buy him 60 more seconds, he might actually make it to street level, might disappear into Seoul's maze of alleys before they could reacquire him. 60 seconds. Kira could give him 60 seconds. She reloaded one-handed, moving, firing at movement, at muzzle flashes, at anything that threatened Jun-ho's escape route. Her shoulder burned. When had she been hit? She hadn't even felt it. Adrenaline was a hell of a drug. 5 assassins left on the roof. Maybe more in the stairwell. Target is escaping, someone yelled. Southwest fire escape. They started moving toward Jun-ho's position. Kira stepped into the open. Hey, she shouted. They all turned. She smiled. Then she charged. It was tactically insane. Numerically impossible. Strategically suicidal. She was one woman with 8 bullets against 5 trained killers with automatic weapons. But sometimes the insane thing was the only thing that worked. She fired while moving, not to kill, but to disrupt, to force them to react instead of think. One round clipped an assassin's arm. Another sparked off a weapon. She dove, rolled, came up behind a concrete divider as return fire chewed through the space she'd occupied. 6 rounds left. She popped up, fired twice, 1 assassin down. 4 rounds. Moved left, fired once. Missed, but forced 2 of them into cover. 3 rounds. One of them was flanking. She saw him too late. He had her dead to rights, his weapon coming up, finger on the trigger. The shot never came. He jerked, blood spraying from his chest, and collapsed. Kira spun. On the adjacent building's roof, maybe 40 meters away, she saw a figure. Sniper rifle. The figure gave her a thumbs up. Minjun's voice crackled through her damaged comm. Boss is clear. Extraction vehicle acquired. Get off that roof. Kira didn't need to be told twice. She sprinted for the fire escape. The remaining assassins were regrouping, but now they were hesitant. Their numbers had been cut in half by one woman. Their confidence was shattered. They'd been told this would be easy. Nothing about Kira Stone was easy. She hit the fire escape, started descending 3 steps at a time. Below, she could see Jun-ho climbing into a black SUV. Min-jun was driving. The vehicle peeled out as soon as Jun-ho was inside. Kira kept moving down. 2nd floor. 1st floor. She could hear pursuit above. They weren't giving up. She dropped the last 6 feet to the alley, landed hard, rolled, came up running. Her shoulder was screaming now, her lungs burning, but she was alive. Jun-ho was alive. That was all that mattered. A motorcycle skidded to a stop beside her. The rider was masked, wearing tactical gear. He gestured urgently. Kira didn't hesitate. She swung onto the back of the bike, and they rocketed into Seoul's nighttime traffic. Behind them, she could hear shouting, more gunfire. But it was fading, becoming distant, becoming irrelevant. They'd survived. The safe house was a nondescript apartment in Hongdae, student district, crowded, the kind of place where people minded their own business. Kira arrived 30 minutes after Jun-ho, having taken 3 different vehicles and 2 subway transfers to ensure she wasn't followed. Min-jun opened the door. His face was pale, his hands shaking slightly. Boss is inside. You should see him. Kira pushed past him. Jun-ho sat on a couch, still wearing his blood-stained suit, staring at nothing. When he saw Kira, something broke in his expression, relief, gratitude, and something else. Something like awe? You're hurt, he said, noticing her shoulder. Bullet went through. I'll live. Kira sat down heavily, suddenly feeling every injury, every bruise. How many did we lose? 14 security personnel confirmed dead, Min-jun said quietly. 3 more missing. The convoy was completely destroyed. We lost the restaurant team, the perimeter team, the backup units. They hit everyone simultaneously. How many attackers total? Kira asked. At least 30 that we've confirmed. Maybe more. Jun-ho looked at her. You fought 30 assassins. I survived 30 assassins, Kira corrected. There's a difference. You saved my life. That's the job. No. Jun-ho shook his head slowly. I've never seen anything like that. The way you moved, the way you fought. You were outnumbered 15-1, and you won. I didn't win, Kira said tiredly. I survived. We survived. That's not the same thing. Min-jun was staring at her with new eyes. No more condescension, no more dismissal. Just pure, unfiltered respect. Who trained you, he asked. Kira didn't answer. Some questions didn't have answers. Some past stayed buried. What matters now is figuring out who orchestrated this, she said instead. That wasn't a spontaneous attack. That was planned, coordinated, funded by someone with serious resources. Jade Serpent and Red Phoenix are the obvious suspects, Jun-ho said. They were both at the meeting. They could have. No, Kira interrupted. Think about it. They were in that building when it blew. They lost people too. I saw Madame Choi's bodyguard get killed in the initial assault. Jun-ho's eyes widened. You're saying someone used the meeting as bait? To kill all the syndicate leaders at once? Not just kill them, Kira said, standing despite her body's protests. She walked to the window, checked the street below from behind the curtain. To decapitate the entire Korean underworld in one strike. Think about it. Every major player in Seoul was in that building. If the attack had succeeded, the power vacuum would have been catastrophic. But who benefits from that? Min-jun asked. Someone who wants to take over, Jun-ho said slowly, his mind working through the implications. Someone who doesn't care about the old hierarchies, the old alliances. Someone who wants to rebuild everything from scratch. Kira turned from the window. You said someone inside your organization was leaking information. Someone close to you. Jun-ho's face went cold. You think one of my own people orchestrated this? I think someone gave them your schedule, your routes, your security protocols. Someone who knew exactly where you'd be and when. Kira's voice was flat, factual. Someone who knew enough to bypass every safeguard. Min-jun pulled out a tablet, started scrolling through data. Only 5 people had access to all that information. Me, Dae-sung, 2 other lieutenants, and... He stopped. And who? Jun-ho asked. Director Shin, Min-jun whispered. He oversees all our security protocols. He has access to everything. Jun-ho stood abruptly. Shin has been with me for 8 years. He's loyal. He's the leak, Kira said with certainty. Where is he now? Min-jun checked his phone, his face going pale. He's not responding. He was supposed to be coordinating emergency protocols after the attack, but he's gone silent. The pieces fell into place like dominoes. Kira could see it now, the whole architecture of the betrayal. Shin had spent years earning trust, positioning himself perfectly, waiting for the right moment. The meeting had been his opportunity. With all the major players in one location, he could eliminate everyone and emerge as the sole surviving authority figure in the chaos. Except he hadn't counted on Kira. We need to move, Kira said. If Shin knows Jun-ho survived, he'll send more teams. This safe house is only safe until someone sells us out. Where do we go? Jun-ho asked. Everywhere I have resources, Shin has access. Every property, every account, every ally. He knows all of it. Then we go somewhere he doesn't know about. Kira was already planning, calculating. Somewhere outside your world. Somewhere normal. Normal? Jun-ho looked at her like she was insane. A cheap hotel. A hostel. Somewhere that doesn't check IDs carefully, where cash works and questions aren't asked. Places like that exist in every city. Min-jun nodded slowly. Itaewon has dozens of places like that. Foreigner areas where nobody looks too carefully. Too obvious, Kira said. He'll expect us to hide in the tourist zones. We go opposite. Industrial district. Somewhere blue-collar, somewhere that closes at 6 and doesn't care what happens after dark. I know a place, Min-jun said quietly. Giro District. My cousin owns a motel there. No questions, no records. Kira studied him. Can we trust your cousin? He doesn't know what I do for a living. As far as he knows, I work in exports. Min-jun met her eyes. He won't ask questions. He never does. It wasn't perfect. Nothing in this situation was perfect. But it was better than staying in a location that would be compromised the moment someone started really looking. Call him, Kira said. But don't tell him who's coming. Just that you need a room for a few days, and you'll pay triple rate for discretion. While Min-jun made the call, Kira checked her weapons. The Glock was down to 3 rounds. She'd lost the submachine gun in the escape. Her knife was somewhere on a rooftop covered in someone else's blood. She needed to rearm. Badly. Min-jun, she said. I need weapons. Clean ones, untraceable. And medical supplies. I have a contact, Min-jun said, finishing his call. We can stop on the way. Jun-ho was watching her with that same expression again. Part awe, part fear, part something else she couldn't quite identify. What? She asked. You're planning to go after Shin, he said. It wasn't a question. Eventually, Kira acknowledged. First we get you somewhere safe. Then we figure out his location, his resources, his backup plans. Then I end this. Just you. Just me, Kira confirmed. It's what you pay me for. I pay you to protect me, not to commit suicide. Protecting you means eliminating threats. Kira checked the street one more time. Shin tried to kill you tonight. He'll try again. The only way you're safe is if he's dead. Jun-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You know what bothers me most about tonight? What? I've been in this life for 20 years. I've survived gang wars, assassination attempts, betrayals. I thought I understood violence. I thought I understood what it meant to fight for survival. He looked directly at her. But watching you on that rooftop, that was something different. That was art. It wasn't art, Kira said flatly. It was necessity. Maybe. But the way you moved, the way you thought 3 steps ahead, the way you turned their numbers against them. Jun-ho shook his head slowly. Who are you, Kira Stone? Really? Kira met his gaze. For a moment, she considered telling him. Considered explaining about the Black Ops unit she'd served with, the missions that didn't exist, the things she'd done for governments that would deny her existence if she was ever caught. Considered explaining why a black woman from the American shadows had ended up protecting Korean crime lords. Instead, she said, I'm the person keeping you alive. That's all that matters. The motel in Guro was exactly as advertised, cheap, anonymous, and disinterested in its clientele. Minjun's cousin barely looked at them, just handed over a key and went back to watching television behind bulletproof glass. The room was small, dingy, but it had what they needed, a bed, a bathroom, and no surveillance cameras. Kira swept it anyway, checking for bugs, for hidden cameras, for any sign that it wasn't what it appeared to be. Clean. Minjun arrived an hour later with weapons and medical supplies. He knocked 4 times, the signal they'd agreed on, and Kira let him in. 2 Glocks, a backup piece, and a tactical knife, he said, laying them on the bed. All clean. My contact guarantees no serial numbers, no history. Good. Kira began checking them immediately. What about Shin? I've been calling in favors, asking questions carefully. Minjun pulled up his phone, showing her security camera footage. He was last seen leaving his apartment 3 hours ago. Since then, nothing. He's gone to ground, Jun-ho said from where he sat against the wall. He'd cleaned up, changed into civilian clothes Minjun had brought. He looked smaller somehow, without the expensive suit and the office and the armed guards. More human. He knows we'll be looking for him. He also thinks I'm dead or too injured to be a threat, Kira said, loading magazines. That's his second mistake. What was his first? Minjun asked. Kira looked up, and there was something cold in her eyes. Something that made both men take an unconscious step back. Trying to kill my client, she said simply. She moved to the bathroom, started treating her shoulder wound. The bullet had gone through clean, lucky. She disinfected it, packed it, and wrapped it tight. It would hurt like hell for a few days, but it wouldn't slow her down much. When she emerged, Jun-ho had fallen asleep sitting up, exhausted from fear and adrenaline crash. Minjun was monitoring his phone, tracking news reports of the restaurant attack. The official story is a gas leak, he said quietly, not wanting to wake Jun-ho. But the underworld knows the truth. I'm getting messages from every syndicate in the city. Everyone's asking what happened, who survived, who's in charge now. What are you telling them? Kira asked. Nothing. Boss said to maintain radio silence until we understand the full situation. Smart. Kira checked her weapons one more time. Everything was in order. How many people know Jun-ho survived? Just us. And whoever pulled you out on that motorcycle. That was one of yours. Minjun shook his head. I thought it was one of yours. Kira went very still. Tell me everything about that motorcycle. Black sports bike. Rider in full tactical gear. He was positioned on the adjacent building during the rooftop fight. He took out 3 assassins with a sniper rifle, then extracted you on the bike. And you don't know who he was? I assumed he was the backup you'd arranged. Kira's mind raced. She hadn't arranged any backup. She'd been working alone except for Minjun's coordination, which meant someone else had been watching the restaurant. Someone with sniper skills and tactical gear. Someone who had actively helped her survive. Someone who wanted Jun-ho alive for reasons of their own. We have a third player, Kira said. Min-jun's face went pale. A third player? Who? I don't know yet. But they're professional. They knew where to position for optimal sight lines. They knew when to intervene. And they extracted me cleanly without saying a word. Kira walked to the window, her tactical mind assembling the puzzle. Someone wants Jun-ho alive, but not for the reasons we think. Maybe it's someone who wants Shin dead, Min-jun suggested. An enemy of his who saw an opportunity. Maybe. Kira wasn't convinced. In her experience, people who helped you in dark alleys always wanted something in return. The question was what? She checked the time. 3 a.m. They had maybe 6 hours before the city woke up and movement became riskier. She needed to think, to plan, to figure out how to turn this nightmare into something survivable. Jun-ho stirred, woke with a start, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. His eyes found Kira, and he relaxed slightly. I was dreaming, he said hoarsely, that I was back on that roof. That you weren't there. That they'd gotten me. I was there, Kira said simply. And they didn't. Jun-ho stood, stretched, winced at his own bruises. What happens now? Now we hunt, Kira said. Shin made his move and failed. He's vulnerable. He'll be scrambling to consolidate power, to explain what happened, to position himself before anyone realizes he orchestrated the attack. He'll go to the council, Jun-ho said suddenly. The Syndicate Council. It meets tomorrow night. Emergency session to discuss what happened at the restaurant. All the surviving leadership will be there. Perfect opportunity for him to spin the narrative, Min-jun added. Claim you're dead. Claim he's the rightful successor. Claim whatever he needs to claim to seize control. Where does this council meet? Kira asked. Changes every time. Security protocol. Jun-ho looked at Min-jun. Can you find out? I can try. But if Shin's there, he'll have security. Lots of it. Kira smiled without humor. Good. I need the practice. Jun-ho shook his head. You can't just walk into a syndicate council meeting and execute someone. There are rules, protocols. Rules. Kira turned to face him fully. He tried to kill you. He tried to kill everyone. Your rules died in that restaurant explosion. If you kill him in front of the council without proof, they'll never accept me as legitimate. They'll think I orchestrated a coup. Then we get proof, Kira said. We make him confess. How? Min-jun asked. Kira was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she pulled out her phone, a burner sheet acquired during the weapons stop. She opened a secure messaging app and typed quickly. What are you doing? Jun-ho asked. Calling in a favor. Kira hit send. I have contacts. People who specialize in extracting information from people who don't want to give it. Torture. Jun-ho's voice was carefully neutral. Persuasion, Kira corrected. There's a difference. Her phone buzzed. A reply, Seoul? Interesting. Give me 12 hours, Done, Kira said. We have until tomorrow afternoon. Then we move on Shin before the council meeting. You make it sound simple, Jun-ho said. It's not simple, but it's possible. Kira began breaking down one of the Glocks, cleaning it, reassembling it. Muscle memory from 1,000 similar nights in 100 different cities. Shin will be careful, but he's not infallible. He's human. Humans make mistakes when they think they've won. And if your contact can't find him? Min-jun asked. Then we draw him out. Kira looked up from the weapon. We let him know Jun-ho is alive. We let him know where we are. We make him come to us. That's insane, Min-jun said. He'll bring an army. Yes, Kira agreed. And I'll be ready. Jun-ho studied her face, searching for something. Doubt, fear, hesitation. He found none of it. You've done this before, he said. Hunted people like this. People who thought they were untouchable. Kira didn't answer directly. Instead, she said, there's something you need to understand about people like Shin. They spend so long being smart, being careful, being 3 steps ahead, that they forget the most basic rule. What rule? Jun-ho asked. Eventually, someone smarter comes along. Kira's voice was quiet, but it carried absolute certainty. And when they do, all that cleverness becomes a cage. The next 12 hours passed in tense preparation. Kira slept in 2-hour shifts, her internal clock trained to function on minimal rest. Jun-ho tried to sleep, but mostly stared at the ceiling, processing everything that had happened, everything that had changed. Min-jun worked his contacts, gathering intelligence, piecing together Shin's movements, tracking the ripples spreading through Seoul's underworld. At 2 in the afternoon, Kira's phone buzzed. Asterisk found him. Sending location. He's dug in deep. You'll need an army. Asterisk. Kira typed back. Asterisk, I don't need an army. I need an opening. Asterisk. The location came through, an industrial warehouse in Yangchun district. Far from the city center, lots of empty buildings, minimal police presence. The kind of place where violence could happen and nobody would hear the screams. He's at a warehouse in Yangchun, Kira announced. How many men can he have there? If he's smart? 20 to 30, Jun-ho said. Private soldiers. The kind who don't ask questions and don't leave witnesses. 30 men in a confined space. Kira was already planning. Close quarters. Limited sight lines. They'll have the numbers, but I'll have mobility. You're talking about assaulting a fortified position alone, Min-jun said. That's suicide. No, Kira corrected. That's work. Jun-ho stood, walked to her, put his hand on her injured shoulder. She flinched but didn't pull away. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. The contract was protection. You've already gone beyond that. You could walk away right now, take your payment, disappear. Why risk your life for mine? Kira looked at him for a long moment. In his eyes, she saw genuine confusion. A man who had spent his whole life in a world where loyalty was bought and sold, where everyone had an angle, where trust was a weakness to be exploited. You hired me 72 hours ago, she said. Everyone mocked you for it. Everyone said I was a mistake. Your own men sabotaged my equipment. They tested me, humiliated me, treated me like I was nothing. I know, Jun-ho said. I should have. But you didn't. Kira cut him off. You could have fired me to save face. You could have sided with your men when they questioned me. But you didn't. You trusted my competence over their prejudice. You backed me when it mattered. She stepped back, checked her weapons one final time. I don't abandon people who trust me, she said simply. That's not who I am. So I'm going to that warehouse. I'm going to find Shin. And I'm going to end this. Jun-ho nodded slowly. Then I'm coming with you. No. It's my organization. My betrayal. My fight. You'll slow me down, Kira said bluntly. And you'll get yourself killed. You're brave, Jun-ho, but you're not a soldier. This is what I do. Let me do it. Then take Min-jun. At least have backup. Kira considered. Having someone to coordinate, to provide overwatch, to extract Jun-ho, if everything went wrong, it made tactical sense. Min-jun, she said. You comfortable with a rifle? I qualified as an expert marksman in the army, Min-jun replied. 10 years ago, but I still practice. Good. You'll provide overwatch from an adjacent building. You see anyone trying to flank me, you take them out. You see me go down, you extract Jun-ho and disappear. Understood. Min-jun nodded. Understood. What about me? Jun-ho asked. You stay here. You stay alive. You stay ready to rebuild your organization when this is over. Kira holstered her weapons. That's how you help. She turned to leave, but Jun-ho caught her arm. Kira, he said, when this is over, if we both survive, I want you to know something. What? You're the first person in 20 years who's made me believe in honor. His voice was rough with emotion. Everyone in my world is corrupt. Everyone has an angle. Everyone betrays everyone eventually. But you're different. You're what I thought this life could never have. Someone with principles. Someone who keeps their word even when it costs them everything. Kira looked at him. This crime lord. This killer. This man who was discovering too late that power without honor was just another form of poverty. Don't make me into something I'm not, she said quietly. I'm not honorable. I'm just stubborn. Maybe that's the same thing, Jun-ho replied. Yangchun district at night looked like the city had given up and walked away. Abandoned factories, empty lots, streetlights that had been dark so long nobody remembered to fix them. The warehouse Shin had chosen was at the center of it all. 3 stories of concrete and rust, windows covered with metal grating, a single entrance visible from the street. Kira approached from the south, moving through shadows, invisible. Min-jun was positioned on an adjacent building's roof with a scoped rifle. Jun-ho was back at the motel, probably pacing, probably terrified. In position, Min-jun's voice crackled through her earpiece. I count 6 external guards. 2 on the roof, 2 at the entrance, 2 patrolling the perimeter. Internal? Kira asked. Can't see. But thermal imaging shows at least 20 heat signatures inside. Maybe more. 26 total. Bad odds. Not impossible odds. Kira had survived worse. She moved closer, studying patterns. The perimeter guards were bored, smoking cigarettes, checking their phones. Professionals, but complacent. They'd been told to watch for an army. They weren't watching for one woman. Their mistake. She waited for the guard rotation, for the moment when sight lines overlapped and created a 2-second blind spot. Then she moved. The first guard died before he knew she was there. Knife through the kidney, hand over mouth, dragged into shadow. The second guard turned just in time to see her coming. He tried to shout. Kira crushed his windpipe with a single strike, lowered him silently. 2 down, she whispered. Roof guards haven't noticed, Min-jun confirmed. Kira reached the side entrance, a maintenance door, locked. She pulled out a lock pick, worked it with practiced efficiency. 30 seconds. The lock clicked. She was inside. The warehouse interior was a maze of crates and equipment, dim emergency lighting casting everything in green and shadow. Kira moved like smoke, checking corners, counting hostiles. 3 guards on the ground floor. She bypassed them, not worth the noise. Shin would be upstairs. People in power always went higher, as if elevation made them safer. She found the stairwell, started climbing. Second floor, more guards, more crates. She could hear voices, Korean, discussing something urgent. Third floor, end of the line. She opened the door a crack, looked inside. There he was. Director Shin sat behind a desk in what had once been an office, now converted to a command center. Maps on the walls. Computer screens showing news feeds, security footage, financial data. He was maybe 50, graying hair, expensive glasses. He looked like an accountant. He looked like someone who had ordered the deaths of dozens of people with the same emotion as filing paperwork. And he was smiling. Kira stepped inside, weapon drawn. Hello, Director, she said quietly. Shin's smile never wavered. Ms. Stone, I had a feeling you'd survived. You're very hard to kill. Unlike your assassins, Kira replied. Regrettable losses, but necessary. Shin stood slowly, hands visible. You understand, of course. This wasn't personal. Just business. Park Jun-ho was weak. The old system was dying. I simply accelerated the transition. By murdering everyone. By creating opportunity. Shin's eyes were calm. And now you're here to kill me, I suppose. Another murder to add to your impressive total. Kira smiled coldly. No, I'm here to make you confess. Shin laughed. Confess? To whom? There's no one here but us. Wrong, Kira said. She tapped her earpiece. Min-jun's voice responded immediately, recording everything. Shin's smile finally cracked. And that's when the warehouse exploded into chaos. The guards burst through the door behind Kira, 6 of them, weapons raised. She'd expected it. She dove left as gunfire erupted, rolled behind a metal filing cabinet, returned fire. 2 guards dropped. You think you're so clever, Shin shouted over the chaos. But you walked into my trap. This entire building is wired to blow. You have 3 minutes before we all become martyrs. Kira's blood went cold. She checked the room, saw the blinking red lights on devices attached to the support columns. Explosives. Enough to bring the whole structure down. Min-jun, she barked into her comm, building's rigged. Extract yourself now. What about you? I'm getting our confession first. She fired 3 more rounds, keeping the guards pinned. Shin was moving toward a back exit, probably had an escape route planned. Of course he did. Men like him always had an exit strategy. Not this time. Kira threw a flashbang. The room erupted in blinding light and deafening sound. She moved through the chaos like a dancer through smoke, her body operating on pure muscle memory and training. 1 guard down. 2. 3. She reached Shin as he touched the exit door. Her hand clamped on his shoulder, spun him around, drove him against the wall. Her gun was pressed under his chin. 2 minutes 30 seconds, she said calmly. Tell me everything. The attack. The betrayal. The plan. Or I leave you here when this place blows. Shin's eyes were wild now, the composure shattered. You're insane. We'll both die. I've made peace with death, Kira said. Have you? Fine. Fine. Shin gasped. I orchestrated everything. The meeting was bait. I paid the Jade Serpent and Red Phoenix inside men to leak locations. I hired the assassins. I wanted to eliminate all the old leadership and rebuild the syndicates under my control. Why? Kira pressed harder. Because they were weak. Because the old ways were dying. Because I deserved power. Shin's voice cracked. I spent 8 years serving, bowing, pretending to respect men who were half as smart as me. It was my turn. Getting all this? Kira asked Min-jun. Every word. Crystal clear. Kira released Shin, stepped back. 1 minute 20. Run. Shin stumbled toward the exit. Kira followed, moving fast. Behind them, the remaining guards were fleeing too. The whole building was emptying as the countdown approached 0. They hit the ground floor, burst through the main entrance. Kira kept running, Shin stumbling ahead of her, toward the perimeter, toward safety. The explosion lit up the night. The shockwave threw them both forward. Kira rolled, came up in a crouch. Shin was on the ground, groaning. The warehouse was collapsing behind them, fire and smoke billowing into the Seoul sky. Sirens in the distance. Police. Fire department. Too late to matter. Kira hauled Shin to his feet, kept her weapon on him. Min-jun appeared from the shadows, rifle slung over his shoulder. That was too close, Min-jun breathed. That was Tuesday, Kira replied. The Syndicate Council meeting happened exactly as scheduled. But this time, Park Jun-ho walked in alive, flanked by Kira Stone, with Min-jun providing footage on a tablet for everyone to see. Shin's confession played on a loop. His voice, his admission, his betrayal laid bare for everyone to witness. The council members, what remained of the Jade Serpent, Red Phoenix, and the other syndicates, watched in stunned silence. When it finished, Jun-ho spoke. Director Shin tried to murder every person in this room, he said quietly. He failed because of one woman who refused to die. Who refused to let me die? Who fought through 30 assassins and lived to tell about it. All eyes turned to Kira. She stood motionless, her face impassive, her presence radiating controlled violence. The old system is dead, Jun-ho continued. Shin was right about that. But the new system won't be built on betrayal and mass murder. It will be built on competence, on honor, on people who keep their word even when it costs them everything. He looked at Kira. This woman saved my life. She saved all of you, whether you know it or not. And I propose that we honor that. Madam Choi, still alive, still elegant, spoke up. What are you suggesting, Park? A new structure, a new council, and a new understanding that power without honor is just another form of weakness. Jun-ho's voice carried weight now. Authority earned in blood and fire. Shin will face justice. Our organizations will rebuild. And we will remember that sometimes the outsider, the one everyone underestimated, is exactly who saves us all. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Kira Stone stood at Incheon Airport, her tactical bag over her shoulder, her wounds healing, her contract complete. Jun-ho found her at the gate. You're really leaving, he said. Contract's over. You're safe. Time to move on. I could offer you a permanent position. Head of security. Name your price. Kira smiled slightly. I'm not built for it, Jun-ho. I'm a storm that passes through. You keep me around too long, I'll destroy everything. Then take this. He handed her an envelope. Double what we agreed. Plus a bonus for exceptional service. Kira didn't open it. Just tucked it away. What about Shin? Traditional justice, Jun-ho said quietly. The syndicates voted. He'll disappear. No one will find him. No one will mourn him. Good. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Jun-ho extended his hand. Thank you, he said. For everything. For keeping me alive. For showing me what real strength looks like. For being exactly what I needed when I needed it most. Kira shook his hand. You're a good man in a bad world, Jun-ho. Try to remember that. Try to be better than what the world expects. I will. Because you showed me it's possible. Kira turned toward her gate. Then paused, looked back. The motorcycle, she said. The one who extracted me. Did you ever find out who it was? Jun-ho smiled mysteriously. Min-jun had a theory. He thinks it was someone from your past. Someone who's been watching over you from the shadows. Someone who knew you'd need help that night. Who? Does it matter? You survived. That's what counts. Jun-ho's smile widened. Though if I had to guess, I'd say you have a guardian angel. And guardian angels don't leave names. Kira studied him, then nodded once. Some mysteries stayed mysterious. Some debts stayed unpaid. She boarded the plane without looking back. 6 months later, across the world in Lagos, a new client hired a bodyguard for protection during a hostile corporate takeover. When Kira Stone walked into the room, the client's face showed surprise. You're not what I expected. I never am, Kira replied. But I'm exactly what you need. They said you were the best, that you've never lost a client, that you fought off 50 assassins in Seoul and lived. Kira smiled slightly. 53, actually. But who's counting? The client stared, then slowly smiled. You're hired. I know, Kira said. And somewhere in Seoul, in a penthouse office overlooking the city, Park Jun-ho heard the news and raised a glass. To the woman who saved us all, he whispered. The city glittered below him, rebuilt, reorganized, reborn. All because one woman had refused to die. All because sometimes the person everyone underestimates is exactly who changes everything. To enjoy more stories, kindly subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more intense stories like this.